Hello, dear friends, I hope you're doing well. I have decided to tackle the issue of inversion in English in this video for a number of reasons. First, there are a number of mistakes related to subject-auxiliary inversion in the written production of a lot of students. The second reason relates to the fact that, to the best of my knowledge, there is no grammar unit related to inversion, qua-inversion. It is true that inversion is taught, but it seems that it is taught in a fragmentary way. Only sporadically do teachers refer to cases of inversion in specific structures. Our discussion will revolve around 6 points, corresponding to 6 cases that necessitate subject-auxiliary or subject-verb inversion in English. Some of the cases are well known to so many students, but there are structures that do not seem to be known to so many students, presumably because they are not frequent and they occur only in formal and academic English. So the cases that we're going to treat are number 1, inversion in direct interrogatives. Number 2, inversion with place expressions at the beginning of a word. We'll come to these things in detail. Number 3, inversion with negative and near negative expressions. Number 4, inversion with some conditionals, specifically conditional type 3 and conditional type 1, which involves the word should. And then we will move on to talk about inversion with comparative structures. Last but not least, we will cover inversion with anaphoric particles, namely so, as, and such. If you would like to get a good hold of these rules along with adequate illustrative examples, you may choose to watch the video until the end and bear with the length. The first case of inversion that we are going to discuss is inversion with direct interrogatives, and this is something that most students know. In fact, we know these things from the very first year of study in English. When we are asking a direct question, then we put a question mark. That's a direct interrogative. That's a question. And when we ask questions, we generally invert the subject and the auxiliary. Where do you live is a question, and because it is a question, subject auxiliary inversion is automatic. However, I would like so many students here watching this video to note that while inversion is necessary when it comes to direct interrogatives, it is a mistake when it comes to indirect interrogatives. All too often we see students producing sentences like, I don't know what does this mean? And this is a mistake, of course, because what does this mean involves inversion. And because we don't have a direct interrogative, inversion is a mistake. The professor asked me, how old am I? That's another example of a problem. The correct sentence is, the professor asked me how old I am. We will not dwell on this case. Let's move to case number 2. Case number 2 is inversion with place expressions. What does this mean? There are certain adverbials called place expressions that necessitate the inversion of the verb or the auxiliary and the subject when they are placed at the beginning of the sentence. Here are a couple of examples. Many gigantic whales live in the ocean. Here in the ocean is a place expression. Now, when we place this adverbial expression at the beginning of the sentence, usually what happens is that the subject and the verb swap positions. There is inversion taking place, so that the sentence becomes, in the ocean live many gigantic whales. Many of us would say something like, my friend is there. Now, just there is a place expression, isn't it? Okay, so when you take there at the beginning of the sentence, we no longer say, there my friend is. It should be, there is my friend. A closer example is, the book you are looking for is here. But when I take here, which is also a place expression, to the beginning of the sentence, it becomes something like, here is the book. Is the book, not the book is. So here is the book. Notice, please, that an adverbial expression triggers inversion under one condition, which is the fact that this adverbial expression is necessary to the meaning of the sentence. The idea in this sentence is complete only with this place expression. We cannot, after all, say something like, my friend is, and stop. So I should complete. I should say my friend is there. I need this. This is necessary for the completion of the sentence. So when I break this, inversion takes place. Same thing for here. My friend is here. Here is my friend. So we cannot say my friend is and stop. Therefore, in case the place expression is not necessary for the completion of the sentence, inversion is not necessary. Consider this example. My friends are watching a film under a tree. So under a tree here is a place expression, but it's not necessary for the idea, for the completion of the sentence. I mean, we don't feel that the sentence is not complete. It's not like my friend is and stop, your friend is what? But when I say my friends are watching a film under a tree, it's fine, but without under a tree, that's also fine. And my friends are watching a film. There is nothing missing in it. So I'm giving you a piece of information in this regard. So here, when we bring under a tree to the beginning of the sentence, inversion is blocked. It means that there is no inversion. We cannot say, for example, under the tree, watch my friends the film. Why? Because even if it's a place expression, it's not necessary for the completion of the sentence. Now let's move to inversion with negatives and near negatives. Let's start with negatives. A negative expression is an expression where there is no or one of its equivalents. For example, if you have something like under no circumstances, we have a no there. So it's a negative expression. On no account, that's the same. And expressions involving only, like only if, for instance, and not only. Let me state the following examples in illustration of this second case, which is the negative expressions. Let's start with the famous not only. He not only studies, but he also works as a lawyer. Not only here is a negative expression. When we bring not only to the beginning of the sentence, inversion is necessary there. Inversion is forced. We say, not only does he study, but he also works as a lawyer. Now with the expression only plus a phrase. For example, only when, only in, only if. Let's take only if. I will join you for the trip only if you pay the transportation fares for me. Only if here is in the middle of the sentence, therefore, so no inversion takes place. But when you bring only if to the beginning of the sentence, that's another story because inversion is necessary. So I can either say, I will join you for the trip only if you pay transportation fares for me, or only if you pay the transportation fares for me, will I join you, or can I join you? The boss will not excuse you under any circumstances, or the boss will excuse you under no circumstances. So under no circumstances here involves the negative particle, and therefore it's a negative expression. When we bring it at the beginning of the sentence, we need to have something like, under no circumstances can the boss accept your apologies. The adverbial never is also a negative expression. Historically, never comes from ne over, something like this. From what meant in Old English no plus ever, no ever. It was merged and gave us in modern English never. So it is a negative expression. Let's take an example like I have never been to London. Never here is the negative expression. It's in the middle of the sentence. Life is good. Now, when you bring never to the beginning of the sentence, inversion is necessary. Instead of saying I have never been to London, you might say never have I been to London. So you have a negative expression that necessitates this inversion, of course, of the subject and the auxiliary. Never shall I talk to you. Never have I seen a monster, and so on and so forth. Now that we talked about strictly negative expressions, now we move to what we refer to as near negative expressions. They are referred to as near negative expressions because there is only one little point between the negative and the non-negative. When I say, for example, I could hardly pay the rent. Hardly here, when I say I could hardly pay the rent. Did I pay the rent? Yes, I did. But when I paid it, I became hard up. No money after. So here, this is what we call a near negative. It means 1 point and you are in the negative. So you have hardly and its synonyms like scarcely, barely. And in frequency we have seldom, which is a synonym of rarely. She seldom visits her uncle, or seldom does she visit her uncle, because we have brought this near negative to the beginning of the sentence, then the result, with the resulting inversion taking place. Barely could I finish the chapter. Barely did I have enough time to phone you. Seldom does it snow in this city, for example. Seldom does it snow. It seldom snows, that's fine, but seldom, because you are starting the sentence with it, you need inversion. Seldom does it snow in this city. So we have so far seen inversion with direct interrogatives, place expressions, negative and near negative expressions. And now we move to the fourth case for inversion in English. This relates to what happens in conditional type 3 and conditional type 1. For conditional type 2, inversion in it is it is reported, but it's not as frequent. So let's talk about conditional type 3. Conditional type 3 is a conditional that expresses an action in the past, an action which is imaginary in the past. We know the story. And the structure is if plus past perfect plus would have plus past participle. We know the story as well. But what some students see not to be aware of is the fact that there is a possibility for deleting the if of the third conditional. Example, I did not see you yesterday and therefore I did not say hello, can be, transformed into a conditional sentence like, if I had seen you yesterday, I would have said hello. I didn't have enough money, I did not buy the coat. If I had enough money, I would have bought the coat. There is a possibility to produce a conditional sentence without the word if. And when we do this, we have to compensate for the deletion of the if by inversion. Example, either if I had seen you yesterday, I would have said hello, or had I seen you yesterday, I would have said hello. Example 2, if I had enough money, I would have bought the coat. Or had I had enough money, I would have bought the coat. There is a case in conditional 1. We are not going to talk about, of course, the normal use of conditional number 1, but let me ask this question. What is the difference between saying, if you meet your cousin, say hello to him, and if you should meet your cousin, say hello to him? On the face of it, they are the same. But why should? The answer is that when you use should in conditional number 1, what this means is that there is a probability that the action will not take place. For example, if I know that you talk to your cousin only on rare occasions, once in a blue moon, I can say, if you should see your cousin, because I know that you will not see him anyway, but just in case, if ever, just in case this happens, then say hello to him. It means 80% of the chances you will not see him, for example. This is unlike if you see your cousin, say hello to him. I know that you regularly talk to your cousin and that there are very high chances for you to see him. It means at least 50% of the chances that you will see him and the other 50% will not. Here we will not use should. Now, when we use if with should, there is also this possibility of saying it without the word if. But in this case, we need to compensate for the absence of if. If you see your cousin tomorrow, say hello to him, it's fine. If you should see your cousin tomorrow, say hello to him, or without if, should you meet your cousin tomorrow, say hello to him. If you decide to sell your car, please tell me. Here, I know that you may and you may not sell your car. It's a possibility anyway. Here we do not use should. But if I know that the car is so dear to you and that you are not willing to sell it, here I might say, for example, if you should think of selling the car. I know you are not thinking about it anyhow. So that's what justifies should there. And when we do this, we have the possibility of deleting the if, but replacing it with inversion. Should you think of selling the car, please let me know. Should you have questions, please contact us. Why have they used should you? Because they, according to them, according to the writer of those pieces of information, they have said everything. But just in case there is something you don't understand or which is unlikely, then you send them the message. It's different from if you have questions. Should you have questions means that you are unlikely to have questions because everything is explained. This is just between brackets, just to show the function of should. But the point being made is that the if that involves should can be deleted and replaced by inversion. The fifth case of inversion is inversion with comparatives or comparative expressions. How? Let's take a sentence as simple as he drinks more tea than his brother. Is this correct? Yes, it is. But it is not so formal. So here we are talking about levels of formality. We can say he drinks more tea than his brother. It's fine. To make it slightly formal, we can add the auxiliary. So he drinks more tea than his brother, and he drinks more tea than his brother does. Okay, so we have added this as it's one way of showing formality. There is a possibility of making this even more formal by inverting the subject of the clause and the auxiliary. So let's recapitulate. He drinks more tea than his brother. It's okay. He drinks more tea than his brother does. That's okay, and that's more formal. Third, he drinks more tea than does his brother. That's very formal. That's very academic. In syntax, there is a rule that distinguishes complements and adjuncts. That's an example. And students usually, memorize this rule that complements are closer to their heads than are adjuncts. Not than adjuncts are, although it's also correct. Or than adjuncts is also correct. Your car consumes less fuel than does your brother's car. Or than your brother's car, or than your brother's car does. So all these are different ways of saying the same thing, except that when you use the auxiliary with this comparative, when you add the auxiliary, it's a level of formality that you are adding, and when you invert it, it's even more formal. The last case of inversion to consider is inversion with some anaphoric particles, like such, so, and as. For example, when I tell you something about someone, towards the end, I can say something like, such was his story. Not such his story was. When I use such, it's an anaphoric reference. It necessitates this inversion. Such was the situation I experienced. I miss you, so do I. So do I. It's not so I do. So here we need to have inversion as well. He thinks that the earth is flat, and so do so many people. With the particle as, inversion is also sometimes necessary. As was the case with his cousin, for example. We cannot say as the case with his cousin was, which is the normal, the canonical word order. Here, as was, so we have used as, and therefore we need to invert. Thank you very much.